Slow down your breathing. There is no need to hurry here. Tonight is not about discovering something new. It is about remembering something very old. Something the earth itself has never forgotten. We are taught that history has a beginning, a clear starting point, a first chapter. We are shown timelines with neat lines, dates carefully placed, civilizations rising where nothing stood before. But history does not feel like that when you listen closely. It feels layered. It feels warm. It feels reused. As if the world you walk on tonight has already been walked on many times before. As if humanity did not arrive at an empty stage, but stepped quietly onto a floor already marked with footprints. Not myths, not legends, not stories meant to entertain, but patterns. Patterns that repeat so often, they begin to feel intentional. This story is not about secrets hidden by villains. It is not about forbidden knowledge guarded by shadows. It is about something simpler and more unsettling. The possibility that we are not the beginning of history, only the continuation. For a long time, historians believed progress moved in a straight line, forward, upward, from primitive to advanced. But nature does not work in straight lines. Seasons do not advance forever. They circle. Forests grow, burn, and grow again. Oceans rise and fall. Ice comes, retreats, and returns. Why would civilization be different? When archaeologists dig, they do not find clean beginnings. They find layers. A city built on ruins. Another city beneath that. And sometimes, something even older below. Stones smoothed by hands that never wrote their names. Tools shaped with care by cultures with no surviving language. Foundations laid out with precision. That feels deliberate, not accidental. And always the same question quietly returns. Who was here before us? There is a strange comfort in believing we are first. It makes us special. It makes us central. It makes the present feel important. But the earth does not behave like a stage built for one performance. It behaves like a memory, a deep one. If you could peel back the surface of the world, the way you peel back pages of a book, you would not find a blank first page. You would find writing beneath writing, impressions beneath impressions, sometimes erased, sometimes rewritten, sometimes only partially removed. Civilizations vanish, but the planet keeps the outline. Roads sink into soil, walls dissolve into hills, cities soften into shapes that look natural, until you look twice. And when you do, the land seems to whisper, "This has happened before." Sleep stories often begin with silence. And so does history. Not the dramatic silence of destruction, but the quiet silence that follows forgetting. After a collapse, there is no announcement, no final speech, no marker that says, "This was the end of an age." There is only abandonment, streets slowly filling with dust, buildings losing their purpose, knowledge becoming impractical, then unnecessary. People adapt. They always do. And in adapting, they simplify. Complex systems fade first. Writing disappears. Measurement becomes approximate. Precision becomes myth. Within a few generations, the past becomes a story. And within a few more, the story becomes a symbol. Eventually, it becomes silence again. We tend to imagine ancient people as simple, but complexity leaves traces. Precision in stonework, astronomical alignments too accurate to guess, engineering solutions repeated across continents, without clear contact. These are not anomalies. They are fingerprints, evidence not of one lost civilization, but of many, each one rising in its own time, each one believing it was building something permanent, each one eventually discovering that permanence is an illusion. The earth does not erase us out of malice. It erases us through patience. Wind does not hate cities. Water does not resent monuments. Time does not oppose intelligence. It simply continues. When you hear the phrase, "the beginning of civilization," it sounds confident, definitive. But beginnings are hard to prove, because for something to truly be a beginning, nothing must come before it. And that is a difficult thing to demonstrate on a planet 4.5 billion years old, especially when the oldest surviving evidence is often the most fragile. Wood decays, textiles vanish, oral knowledge fades, stone lasts longer, but even stone forgets. And what we find today is not the full story, it is what survived. Imagine a civilization advanced enough to build, but not obsessed with legacy. A culture focused on function, not monuments. On harmony, not dominance. What would remain after 10,000 years? Probably not much. Maybe foundations. Maybe altered landscapes. Maybe alignments mistaken for coincidence. And maybe a future civilization would stand above those remnants and say, "This is where history begins." Not realizing they were standing in the middle of someone else's ending. The idea that we are not the first does not make us insignificant. It makes us responsible, because if others came before us and disappeared, then the question is no longer, how did we get here? It becomes, how long do we last? History for sleep is not about fear. It is about humility, the kind that helps the mind loosen its grip on urgency. You do not need to solve history tonight. You only need to rest inside the idea that time is wider than we are told. As you breathe more slowly now, consider this gently. If civilizations rise and fall in cycles, then collapse is not failure, it is transition. And if knowledge is lost and rediscovered, then ignorance is not weakness, it is forgetting. Forgetting is natural, remembering is rare, and sometimes remembering begins, not with evidence, but with intuition, a quiet sense that the world feels older than the stories we tell about it. In the next part of this journey, we will drift deeper into repeating ages, into buried timelines, into the subtle signs left behind by those who came before and believed, just like us, that they were the present. For now, let your thoughts slow. History does not need your attention to continue. It has already done this many times, and you are allowed to rest inside that continuity. History rarely ends the way we imagine. It does not collapse all at once. It does not announce its departure. It does not leave a clear line between before and after. Most of the time, history fades. Civilizations do not fall asleep suddenly. They grow tired. Systems become heavy. Maintenance replaces creation. Innovation turns into repetition. And slowly, without drama, the world begins to simplify itself. This is how cycles begin. Every civilization believes it is unique, not because it truly is, but because memory is short. Each age looks back and sees fragments, broken tools, ruined walls, unreadable symbols, and it assumes those fragments belong to something smaller, less refined, less advanced. It rarely considers that what it sees is only what survived, because survival is not proof of importance. It is proof of durability. When knowledge is passed down, it requires care. Writing must be copied. Skills must be practiced. Understanding must be refreshed. If any of these stop, knowledge does not disappear immediately. It degrades. Instructions become rituals. Engineering becomes tradition. Science becomes myth. And eventually, meaning dissolves into symbolism. This is not lost through violence. It is lost through neglect. Think of a machine no one remembers how to repair. At first, it still works. Then it works imperfectly. Then it becomes unreliable. Then it becomes sacred. People stop asking how it functions and start asking what it represents. And when it finally stops working, it becomes history. The earth has seen this pattern many times. Agriculture emerges. Surpluses grow. Cities expand. Specialization increases. Time becomes measured. The sky becomes mapped. Stone becomes precise. And then, balance shifts. Resources strain. Climate changes. Trade routes weaken. Knowledge concentrates in fewer places. Until one disruption is enough. Not a global catastrophe. Just enough. Enough to break continuity. What follows is not chaos. It is adaptation. People move closer to food, closer to water, closer to safety. Complex systems are abandoned first, not because they fail, but because they require cooperation. And cooperation is fragile when survival becomes local again. This is how eras end, not with fire, but with forgetting. There is a common assumption that progress is permanent, that once a technology exists, it can never truly be lost. But history quietly disagrees. We have lost languages. We have lost navigation methods. We have lost architectural knowledge that took generations to refine, not because it was destroyed, but because it was no longer necessary. And necessity is the guardian of memory. Imagine a society that solves a problem so completely, it forgets the struggle that led there. When conditions change, the solution becomes useless. And without the struggle, the knowledge behind the solution cannot be rebuilt. This is how civilizations regress. Without ever noticing, archaeology shows us something subtle. Not just collapsed cities, but interrupted sequences, construction styles that stop suddenly, measurement systems that change without explanation, techniques that appear fully formed and then vanish. These are not random. They are signatures of transition, moments where one age hands the world to another without knowing it is doing so. Sleep allows the mind to accept patterns without resistance. So let this idea rest gently with you. History does not move forward. It moves through people, through cultures, through memory and forgetting. Each generation believes it stands at the center. Each one believes it is different. But the cycle does not judge. It repeats. You are not listening to a story of loss. You are listening to a story of continuity. Civilization does not end. It changes shape. It becomes smaller, quieter, closer to the land. Then, slowly, it grows curious again. Curiosity leads to counting. Counting leads to measuring. Measuring leads to building. And building leads back to the belief that this time will be different. This time will last. There is nothing wrong with that belief. It is what drives creation. But sleep reminds us that nothing needs to last forever. To be meaningful, as your thoughts slow now, imagine history not as a ladder, but as a tide. Rising, falling, returning, each wave shaped by the last, each one believing it is the shore. In the next part, we will drift deeper into the evidence left behind. Not proof, not certainty, but traces. The quiet marks civilizations leave when they forget to announce themselves. For now, rest. The cycle does not need to be understood to continue, and you do not need to stay awake to be part of it. The earth remembers in layers, not in words, not in dates, but in pressure, temperature, and time. Every step you take rests on countless moments that no longer have names. Cities become soil, soil becomes stone, stone becomes silent, and silence is the language. The planet speaks best. When we search for the past, we often look for shapes that resemble us. Walls, tools, symbols. But the earth does not preserve intention. It preserves impact. A road does not remain a road. It becomes a subtle difference in density. A building does not remain a building. It becomes a regularity in collapse. A civilization does not remain a civilization. It becomes a pattern. Many traces are dismissed because they do not look dramatic. They are too smooth, too aligned, too ordinary. Nature, we say, can do this. And it can. But nature rarely repeats itself with the same restraint, the same rhythm, the same proportions. When patterns repeat across distant lands, the explanation becomes quieter, not louder. Consider the landscapes we call natural. Terraces along mountains, straight channels in stone, plains that seem prepared rather than eroded. We accept them because they are familiar. But familiarity is not proof of origin. It is only proof of comfort. Time does not erase evenly. Soft things vanish first. Wood, cloth, voice. Hard things resist longer. Stone, metal, shape. But even stone remembers only what it cannot forget. Angles soften, edges round, precision blurs. And yet, something remains. Sometimes it is alignment, a structure that faces a solstice with unnecessary accuracy. Sometimes it is scale, work far larger than survival requires. Sometimes it is absence, places where nothing grows, for reasons that are no longer visible. The earth is not hiding these things. It is simply not preserving explanations. Explanations belong to minds. Traces belong to matter. Modern science often asks the wrong question. It asks, can nature do this? And the answer is almost always yes. But the better question is softer. Does nature usually do this? This way? This often? And when the answer becomes uncertain, silence follows. Silence is not denial. It is pause. A pause that allows the world to remain open. Sleep invites us to accept uncertainty without anxiety. You do not need proof tonight. You do not need conclusions. You only need to notice that the world feels layered, that the ground beneath you feels older than memory. Imagine walking across a plain that was once a city, long before cities had names. Imagine rivers redirected, not by chance, but by quiet planning, so long ago that intention has dissolved. Imagine a people who did not build to impress, but to endure balance. What would remain? Probably not statues, probably not texts, probably only alignment, proportion, absence. These are the traces we misunderstand, because they do not speak. They do not demand attention. They simply exist. History prefers stories with endings, but the earth prefers continuity. One surface replaces another. One memory fades into the next, and nothing announces which moment matters most. As you rest now, let this idea settle gently. The past is not gone. It is distributed, spread thinly across the planet, compressed into places we walk past every day, not waiting to be discovered, only waiting to be noticed. In the next part, we will move even deeper, not into monuments, but into time itself, into the idea of the earth as an archive that was never meant to be read all at once. For now, let your thoughts slow further. The surface holds more than it shows, and you are allowed to sleep without understanding it. Imagine discovering that the story you were taught about human history was never meant to be complete, that its clean beginning, its steady rise, its promise of inevitable progress were not lies exactly, but simplifications. Simplifications designed to make the present feel stable, because the truth is quieter, older, and far more unsettling. The truth is not that civilization is ancient. The truth is that civilization is young, and not the first. Human history is usually presented as a straight line, a gradual ascent from simplicity to complexity, from stone tools to cities, from villages to empires, from darkness to knowledge. But the earth does not move in straight lines. Climate does not. Oceans do not. Life itself does not. Everything meaningful on this planet moves in cycles, and history is no exception. If you slow your thoughts for a moment, you may notice something strange. The deeper we dig into the past, the less simple it becomes. The earliest monumental structures are not crude. They are precise. The oldest stonework is not experimental. It is confident. The first appearances of architecture, astronomy, and engineering do not look like beginnings. They look like reconstructions. Across the world, the same pattern repeats. Complexity appears suddenly, fully formed, without clear stages of development. Then, over time, it fades. Techniques become rougher. Knowledge narrows. Precision is lost. It is as if each civilization begins with fragments of something older, and slowly forgets how those fragments once fit together. This inversion should not exist. In a linear model of progress, early structures should be the simplest, but they are not. They are the most advanced. And that contradiction sits quietly at the foundation of our understanding of the past. Consider the possibility that humanity has not risen once, but many times. That entire worlds of human organization have existed, flourished, and disappeared long before recorded history began, not erased by a single disaster, but dismantled by sequences of change. Too fast for societies to survive intact. When civilizations collapse, they do not leave behind neat ruins. They leave absences. Knowledge disappears first, then coordination, then memory. Survivors scatter. They carry fragments with them, stories, symbols, habits, instincts. But without the systems that once supported them, those fragments lose context. Over generations, function becomes ritual, understanding becomes myth. Eventually, even myth fades. This is how entire epochs vanish, without a trace in textbooks. Not because nothing existed, but because very little survives. For most of human existence, the sea level was far lower than it is today. Vast coastal plains once existed, where oceans now stretch for hundreds of miles. These regions were not empty. They were the most desirable places to live. Access to fresh water, abundant food, natural trade routes. If early civilizations existed, this is where they would have thrived. And this is precisely where the evidence would now be hidden. 70% of prehistoric human settlements are estimated to lie underwater, not destroyed, not removed, simply submerged, invisible to traditional archaeology. What we call the dawn of civilization may not be a birth at all. It may be a resurfacing, a rebuilding that occurred after rising seas erased the memory of what came before. Geology tells us something important. The planet does not change slowly when it matters most. Ice cores reveal sudden temperature shifts of 10 degrees Celsius within a human lifetime. Sea levels rising tens of meters in a few centuries. Ecosystems collapsing almost overnight. These are not rare anomalies. They form a pattern. Each time the climate resets violently, human populations crash. Genetic bottlenecks appear. Knowledge is lost. And after stability returns, civilization begins again. Not from zero, but from echoes. This explains something subtle. Why the earliest cities appear suddenly organized. Why writing systems emerge abruptly. Why astronomical knowledge seems to arrive fully formed. It was not invented. It was remembered. Myths were never fantasies. They were compressed memories. Stories shaped to survive trauma. In the absence of writing, flood myths, fire from the sky, long winters, vanishing lands. These stories are found everywhere because the events that inspired them were global. When ancient cultures speak of gods teaching survivors how to farm, how to build, how to measure the stars, they are not describing miracles. They are describing inheritance. What follows in this story is not speculation. It is synthesis, a pattern that emerges when geology, archaeology, genetics, and mythology are viewed together. Instead of in isolation, humanity did not climb history once. It has climbed it repeatedly, and each time, the ladder was knocked away. We are not the first civilization. We are not even the most advanced to have existed. We are simply the most recent. To believe we are permanent. As you continue listening, there is nothing you need to decide. No conclusion to accept. Just allow the idea to settle gently, that the Earth has hosted many versions of humanity, each convinced it stood at the center of time, each eventually forgotten. And now, without realizing it, we stand exactly where they once stood. The Earth does not erase history out of malice. It erases it through patience. Stone softens, coastlines move, rivers change their minds, and what once seemed permanent becomes unrecognizable. When archaeologists uncover ancient sites, they often describe them as isolated wonders. An anomaly here, a mystery there. But anomalies stop being anomalies when they repeat across continents, across oceans, across tens of thousands of years. The oldest structures we know appear at the wrong time. They are too large, too precise, too intentional, and they arrive without warning. No gradual experimentation. No crude prototypes, just sudden competence. In southeastern Anatolia, stone pillars rise from the ground, older than agriculture itself. They are carved with symbolic animals, arranged in perfect circles, aligned with the sky. According to the traditional timeline, the people who built them should not have been capable of such work. And yet, there it stands, not evolving, not learning, already complete. In the Egyptian desert, stone circles track the movement of the stars, thousands of years before dynasties existed. In the Andes, massive blocks fit together, with a precision modern engineers still struggle to replicate. In Mesoamerica, cities were ancient even to the civilizations that inherited them. No records of their builders, no memories of their origins, only silence. The usual explanation is coincidence, independent invention, cultural leap. But coincidence grows weaker the more often it appears. What if these structures are not the start of something new? What if they are the remains of something interrupted? To understand this, we have to stop thinking of collapse as a single event. Civilizations do not end in one moment. They unravel. First, trade breaks, then communication, then specialization. A society that once relied on thousands of interconnected roles is forced back into local survival. Knowledge that required collaboration becomes useless, and useless knowledge is quickly forgotten. Imagine a world where star charts exist, but there is no longer time to study them, where engineering knowledge survives, but there are not enough people to apply it, where writing exists, but no one remembers why it mattered. Within a few generations, even advanced understanding becomes superstition. Within a few more, it becomes myth, and then it disappears entirely. This is not speculation. We see it happen on smaller scales. Throughout history, after the fall of Rome, concrete recipes were lost, road systems decayed, libraries burned or were abandoned. Europe did not suddenly forget how to think. It lost the systems that supported thinking. Now imagine this process, not happening regionally, but globally, driven by climate shifts, rising seas, volcanic winters, and rapid environmental collapse. Ice core data shows us that these changes can happen far faster than intuition suggests. Not over millennia, over decades, sometimes less. When ice melts suddenly, sea levels do not creep. They surge. Entire coastlines disappear. Within a human lifetime, cities built near the water are erased first, and early civilizations almost always lived near water. This creates a distortion in the archaeological record. We find inland remnants and assume they were the centers, but the true centers are gone, buried beneath hundreds of feet of ocean. This explains why the earliest known civilizations appear already advanced. They were not first. They were survivors. Survivors who carried memories they no longer fully understood. Fragments of astronomy, fragments of geometry, fragments of social organization. Enough to rebuild, not enough to remember why. And so each new era believed it was inventing civilization, when in reality, it was reconstructing it from ruins it could not see. This cycle did not happen once. It happened repeatedly. Each time the planet destabilized, human populations collapsed. Genetic evidence confirms this. Bottlenecks appear again and again in our DNA. Moments when humanity was reduced to a fraction of its former size. After each bottleneck, human culture simplifies. Then, slowly, complexity returns. Not because it is new, but because it is resilient. This is why progress feels inevitable. It has happened before, not once, but many times. Myths survive because they compress experience. A flood story can carry the memory of a real inundation for thousands of years. A story of fire from the sky can preserve the memory of volcanic winters or cosmic impacts. A tale of wandering teachers can preserve the memory of survivors passing on knowledge to those who came after. These stories are not fantasies. They are trauma processed through narrative. When different cultures, separated by oceans, describe the same disasters, the same sequence of destruction, the same rebirth, we should listen, not because myth replaces science, but because myth remembers what science often cannot see. Science sees data points. Myth sees continuity. Taken together, they reveal something uncomfortable, that human history is not a single ascent. It is a series of climbs, interrupted by falls, so complete that memory itself collapses. And now, for the first time, we are beginning to see the pattern, not because we are wiser, but because we have instruments. We measure ice loss in real time. We track magnetic instability. We observe atmospheric disruption as it happens. We watch coastlines retreat. Year by year, the forces that ended previous eras are not gone. They are part of the system. The difference is that we can now observe them, and observation changes responsibility. As this story continues, we will move closer to the present, to the question no civilization before us was able to ask clearly. If collapse is cyclical, is it inevitable, or can awareness change the outcome? For now, let your thoughts remain slow. There is no urgency here. History unfolds on timescales larger than fear, and understanding begins, not with panic, but with patience. The most unsettling realization is not that civilizations collapse. It is that collapse does not announce itself. There is no single moment when people understand that they are living at the end of an era. Life continues. Markets open. Children are born. Buildings are repaired. And yet, beneath the surface, the conditions that once made stability possible are quietly disappearing. Every previous epoch ended while its people believed they still had time. Time to adapt. Time to recover. Time to fix what was breaking. They were wrong not because they were foolish, but because the systems they depended on were more fragile than they understood. Complex societies rely on balance. Food systems, climate stability, predictable seasons, trade networks, social trust. When several of these fail at once, collapse accelerates. And when collapse accelerates, knowledge becomes a luxury. The past did not disappear because people stopped caring. It disappeared because survival does not preserve complexity. When environments shift rapidly, humans retreat to what works immediately. Hunting, gathering, shelter, warmth. Everything else waits. And waiting knowledge is often forgotten knowledge. This explains why archaeology finds gaps. Long periods where almost nothing remains. Not because nothing happened, but because what happened was too chaotic to leave lasting traces. Consider the Younger Dryas. A sudden return to glacial conditions nearly 13,000 years ago. Temperatures dropped sharply within decades. In some regions, within a single lifetime, forests vanished. Megafauna disappeared. Ice returned. Human populations collapsed. And whatever societies existed before it were shattered. When the climate stabilized again, something remarkable happened. Monumental architecture appeared almost immediately. Not gradually, suddenly. As if people already knew what to build and how. This pattern is not isolated. It repeats again and again. After major climatic shocks, culture resets. Then complexity reemerges with surprising speed. This speed is the clue. True invention is slow. It requires experimentation, failure, iteration. Reconstruction is fast. It begins with memory. If you know what a system once looked like, even imperfectly, you can rebuild it faster than if you start from nothing. This is why the earliest civilizations look confident. They were not guessing. They were recalling. Genetics supports this view. Human DNA is filled with scars. Bottlenecks. Abrupt reductions in population. Sudden expansions. Each bottleneck corresponds to known periods of environmental instability. Each expansion follows a return to stability. These are not local events. They are global. When population collapses happen, they erase not just people, but specialization. A society of millions can sustain astronomers, engineers, builders. A society of thousands cannot. The knowledge survives briefly, then fragments, then disappears. This is why ancient myths often describe a time when humans lived closer to the gods. That phrase does not mean divinity. It means proximity to knowledge. The gods were not supernatural beings. They were the remembered architects of a lost world. Teachers, survivors, carriers of memory. As generations passed, their humanity faded from the story. Only reverence remained. This is how history becomes religion, and how history disappears. The sixth epoch ended when rising seas reclaimed the most productive regions on Earth. Coastal plains vanished. River valleys drowned. Entire cultures were displaced. Survivors moved inland. They gathered along rivers. The Nile, the Tigris and Euphrates, the Indus, the Yellow River. These were not random choices. They were refuges. What we call the cradle of civilization was not the birthplace of culture. It was the shelter of refugees. They brought with them knowledge that no longer fit the new world. So it was simplified, adapted, misunderstood. This is why writing appears suddenly, why agriculture spreads rapidly, why monumental building emerges with no clear developmental path. Civilization did not begin, it resumed. And now, We find ourselves in the seventh epoch, an era defined not by stability, but by acceleration. For the first time, human activity itself has become a geological force. We reshape landscapes, redirect rivers, alter atmospheric chemistry. We extract energy at a scale unmatched by any previous civilization. This gives the illusion of control. But control is not immunity. The same forces that ended earlier epochs are still active. Climate volatility, sea level change, magnetic instability, tectonic stress. The difference is not the forces, it is the speed. Change is happening faster than most social systems are designed to handle. Previous civilizations collapsed because they could not see the pattern. We can see it, but seeing does not guarantee action. Awareness introduces a new variable, not certainty, choice. If this epoch ends as the others did, it will not be because collapse was unknown. It will be because complexity outpaced wisdom. There is a question that no previous civilization was able to ask clearly. What do we preserve when everything else fails? Stone lasts, but meaning does not automatically follow. Digital records are fragile. Knowledge stored in machines requires energy, and energy is not guaranteed. Earlier epochs attempted preservation. Megaliths, calendars, alignments, messages written in geometry. They did not try to explain everything. They tried to warn. Perhaps the greatest lesson of the six forgotten epochs is not that collapse happens. It is that survival without memory leads to repetition. The eighth epoch, if it comes, will inherit something. The question is, will it inherit only ruins or understanding? As you continue listening, there is no need to fear this pattern. Cycles are not punishments. They are processes. Life persists. Humanity persists. But the form it takes is never guaranteed. You are living inside a moment that future generations may barely remember. And that is not a tragedy. It is simply the scale of time. What matters is not how long this epoch lasts. What matters is what it leaves behind. I will continue writing. The question that remains is not whether these cycles happened. The evidence is already written in stone, in ice, in genes, and in stories that refuse to disappear. The real question is quieter. Why do civilizations forget what ended the ones before them? Each era believes collapse belongs to the past. To earlier people, less advanced people, people without warning systems. But collapse does not announce itself in language societies recognize. It does not arrive as an enemy. It arrives as normality slowly becoming unstable. Harvests fail slightly more often. Storms arrive slightly out of season. Rivers behave unpredictably. Nothing dramatic enough to cause panic, only enough to cause strain. At first, societies adapt. They change routes. They adjust calendars. They build defenses. But adaptation requires time, and time is the one resource collapse removes. The historical record shows something consistent. Civilizations do not fail because they are weak. They fail because they are optimized. Optimized systems are efficient. But efficiency removes redundancy, and redundancy is what allows survival when conditions change suddenly. Earlier civilizations were not stupid. They were vulnerable in the same way all complex systems are vulnerable. They depended on stability, and stability is temporary. The Earth does not promise continuity. It offers cycles, warmth and cold, expansion and contraction, abundance and scarcity. Human systems must either move with those cycles or break against them. This is why collapse appears sudden in history. Not because it was unpredictable, but because it exceeded the speed of adaptation. Ice core data shows this clearly. Temperature shifts occurred not gradually, but in abrupt jumps. A few years, sometimes less. Human societies require generations to reorganize. The planet does not wait. When collapse happens at planetary scale, no empire can outrun it. No border protects against climate. No army defends against rising seas. What survives is not power. What survives is flexibility. This is why nomadic cultures often persist while settled civilizations vanish. Mobility is adaptation. Fixity is vulnerability. Yet every successful civilization eventually chooses permanence. Cities replace camps. Monuments replace movement. Records replace memory. And with permanence comes the illusion of control. The illusion that the environment has been mastered. That nature has been negotiated with. that history has ended. This illusion appears in every era, and it always breaks the same way. Consider the coastlines again. Early humans did not fear the sea. They depended on it. Coasts offered food, transport, and connection. They were highways before roads existed. But coasts are temporary. They move when ice melts. And ice does not melt politely. During meltwater pulses, sea levels rose meters within decades. No city could retreat fast enough. No infrastructure could be dismantled and moved. People fled, but cities stayed. And cities drowned. This explains why we see sudden abandonment without signs of warfare. No burn layers. No mass graves. Just silence. The inhabitants did not die where they lived. They left, and carried only what they could remember. Memory becomes the most valuable technology after collapse. Not machines, not structures, stories, skills, patterns, but memory degrades. Every retelling simplifies. Every generation removes context. After enough time, what remains sounds like myth, and myth is ignored. This is why humanity repeatedly loses its own warnings. Not because they were not recorded, but because they were recorded in the only format capable of surviving collapse. Story. When ancient myths speak of cycles, of repeated ages, of worlds destroyed and reborn, they are not predicting the future. They are remembering the past. The concept of ages is not arbitrary. It appears independently across civilizations. Hindu yugas, Mesoamerican suns, Greek ages of man. Different cultures. Same idea. Time as repetition. Modern history rejected this idea because it conflicted with progress. Linear time is comforting. It implies improvement. Cycles imply inevitability. But inevitability does not mean helplessness. It means responsibility. For the first time, humanity possesses awareness of the cycle. This alone does not prevent collapse, but it changes the equation. Previous civilizations experienced collapse as incomprehensible catastrophe. We experience it as data. We can see climate instability forming. We can measure ice loss. We can track ocean currents weakening. We can observe atmospheric feedback loops accelerating. The signals are not hidden. They are merely inconvenient. The danger is not ignorance. The danger is normalization. Humans adapt psychologically faster than they adapt structurally. What begins as anomaly quickly becomes routine. Extreme weather becomes seasonal. Sea level rise becomes statistical. Instability becomes background noise. Collapse rarely feels dramatic to those living inside it. It feels like adjustment. This is why civilizations do not react in time. Not because they cannot see change, but because they mistake acceleration for fluctuation. The archaeological record shows this pattern clearly. Cities expand even as resources decline. Infrastructure grows more complex even as resilience decreases. Effort increases as returns diminish. This is the signature of late-stage civilization, not decadence, overextension. At this point in the cycle, societies double down. They invest more in systems that assume continuity. They optimize further. They centralize control. And in doing so, they reduce adaptability even more. Collapse then appears sudden, but it was mathematically inevitable. This does not mean collapse must mirror the past. Cycles repeat, but outcomes can differ. Earlier civilizations lacked global awareness. They were isolated. When collapse struck, knowledge fragmented permanently. We are different. We are globally connected. Information no longer belongs to a single place. This is unprecedented. But connection alone is not preservation. Digital knowledge is fragile. It depends on energy, infrastructure, maintenance. Without those, digital memory vanishes faster than stone ever did. If the seventh epoch collapses, what will remain? Concrete will fracture. Steel will rust. Satellites will decay and fall. Data will corrupt. Languages will fragment. The archaeological footprint of our civilization may appear strangely thin. Plastic, scattered metals, anomalous isotopes. Not libraries, not cities. Future archaeologists may find less evidence of us than of civilizations that built in stone. This raises a final, quiet question. If we know collapse is cyclical, what should be preserved? Not technology. Technology changes too fast. Not cities. They depend on stability. What survives collapse is knowledge encoded in resilient forms, patterns, ratios, stories that carry warnings, stone calendars, astronomical alignments, architectural messages that can be interpreted without language. Earlier civilizations attempted this. Megaliths were not monuments. They were messages. They marked solstices, tracked cycles, encoded measurements, preserved warnings about floods and skies. They were built not for beauty, but for continuity. We misunderstood them because we forgot what they were for. Now we face the same decision, whether consciously or not. The seventh epoch is not special because it is advanced. It is special because it knows the pattern. Awareness does not guarantee survival, but it allows intention. For the first time, humanity can choose to preserve knowledge across collapse, not to stop the cycle, but to soften the fall. Whether we do this will determine what the eighth epoch inherits, not whether they exist. They will. The earth ensures that. But whether they begin in ignorance or remembrance, let this thought rest with you, not as fear, but as perspective. You are not living at the end of history. You are living inside a turning, and turnings do not ask permission. They simply arrive. Rest now. The earth continues its rhythm whether we listen or not. But tonight, you have listened. If you listen closely to history, you notice that collapse is never the loudest moment. The loud moments are remembered. The quiet ones are repeated. What truly defines the end of an epoch is not destruction, but reorientation. People stop thinking in generations and begin thinking in seasons. Long plans feel unnecessary. Short survival feels urgent. And slowly, the future contracts. This contraction is subtle. At first, institutions fail before beliefs do. Then beliefs fail before identity does. Only later does identity dissolve. By the time people realize they are living in the aftermath of an age, the age itself is already unreachable. This is why later civilizations always misunderstand earlier ones. They study the remains without access to the mindset that created them. They see structure, but not purpose. Consider again the great stoneworks of the past. They are often described as temples, or tombs, or symbols of power. But those interpretations reflect us, not them. We project our motives backward. What if these structures were not built to honor gods or impress rivals? What if they were built to communicate with the future, not in words? Words do not survive collapse, but in cycles. Stone that marks the longest and shortest days. Alignments that repeat every year, regardless of culture or language. Measurements that remain meaningful as long as the sky still moves. These are not religious gestures. They are temporal anchors. They say, quietly, this is where you are in the cycle. This is how long it has been. This is how long it will return. Civilizations before us understood something we often ignore. That the most important information is not how powerful you are. It is when you are. Time awareness is survival awareness. Modern society tracks time obsessively, but not meaningfully. We measure seconds, but forget cycles. We predict trends, but ignore rhythms. Earlier civilizations tracked cycles, solar, lunar, planetary, not for astrology, but for stability, because cycles reveal thresholds, moments when conditions shift rapidly, points of no return. Ice ages did not arrive gradually. They arrived through tipping points. So do collapses. One system compensates until it cannot. Then change accelerates. This pattern repeats everywhere. In climate, in ecology, in economies, in civilizations. Yet each time, the belief in permanence returns. Because permanence feels efficient. Efficiency is seductive. It removes redundancy. It maximizes output. It rewards optimization. But efficiency is brittle. It assumes the future resembles the past. Cycles punish that assumption. This is why highly advanced civilizations are not safer. They are more exposed. Earlier epochs did not collapse because they lacked intelligence. They collapsed because intelligence allowed complexity, and complexity requires stability. This brings us to a difficult realization. Collapse is not a failure of morality. It is not punishment. It is not decay. It is a phase transition, just as water becomes ice, without losing its essence. Civilization becomes something else, without disappearing. After collapse, humanity does not end. It disperses. Knowledge fragments. Some is lost forever. Some survives in altered form. Some becomes instinct. Instincts are knowledge that no longer remembers learning. Our fear of collapse comes from imagining extinction. But extinction is rare. Transformation is common. The Earth has erased countless species, but humanity has survived every collapse it faced. Not unchanged, but alive. What changes most is scale. Large systems break into small ones. Centralization gives way to locality. Uniformity gives way to diversity. After collapse, human societies often become more sustainable, not less. They align more closely with their environment. They consume less. They waste less. They adapt faster. This is not romanticism. It is observation. The danger of collapse is not that humanity ends. It is that memory resets. Each reset forces civilization to relearn lessons at great cost. We rebuild agriculture. We rediscover astronomy. We reinvent governance. Again and again. Each time believing it is new. If you accept that we are not the beginning, then the present feels different. Less absolute. Less fragile. You are not standing at the edge of the world. You are standing inside a turning. This perspective changes fear into patience, urgency into responsibility. The question is no longer, how do we stop collapse? The question becomes, what do we carry through it? Earlier civilizations answered this unconsciously. They left behind alignments, stones, patterns, messages that survive, even when language does not. We must decide consciously. Digital memory alone is not enough. It vanishes without power. Concrete alone is not enough. It fractures. The most resilient knowledge is simple, repeatable, and encoded in reality itself. Mathematics, astronomy, proportion, cycles, knowledge that can be rediscovered by observation. This may be why ancient builders favored stone and sky. They knew the audience would change. Perhaps the greatest mistake of modern civilization is believing that documentation equals preservation. Preservation requires continuity. Continuity requires resilience. As this narration continues, let this thought soften your mind. We are not failing history. We are participating in it. The seventh epoch is not defined by collapse or survival. It is defined by awareness. Whether awareness is enough remains unknown, but awareness itself is unprecedented. And that makes this moment quietly unique, not as an ending, but as a choice point. You do not need to solve it tonight. Sleep does not require answers. It requires perspective. The earth has turned before. It will turn again. Humanity will remain. The shape will change. And one day, long after this epoch fades, someone will stand on altered ground and feel the same quiet intuition that the world feels older than the stories they were told. That intuition will be correct. Rest now. You are part of a continuity, larger than fear, larger than progress, larger than endings. Narration text English, calm, slow, immersive. Take a slow breath and imagine that time itself is not moving forward, but breathing. Inhale. Civilizations rise. Exhale. They vanish. Not erased by enemies, not defeated by weakness, but reset by forces older than memory. For most of human existence, the planet was not stable. It pulsed. It shifted. It changed faster than stories could be written. And yet something always remained. Not cities, not empires, but fragments, hints, echoes, patterns that refuse to disappear. Because even when worlds collapse, memory does not vanish completely. It hides in stone, in myth, in the human body itself. Tonight, we continue not from history, but from what history forgot. The quiet survivors. Every collapse leaves survivors. Not kings, not scholars, not the architects of power, but ordinary people. Those who fled uphill, those who crossed forests, those who followed rivers inland when the sea rose without mercy. They did not carry libraries. They did not preserve blueprints. They carried stories. Simple stories, repeated by firelight. Stories about a time before. Before the water. Before the cold. Before the sky burned. They told their children, there was once a world that ended. And the children listened. Then generations passed. The story softened. Details blurred. Names vanished. But the shape of the story remained. A great flood. A long winter. Fire from the sky. Teachers who arrived afterward. Not gods. Not aliens. Survivors. Why knowledge always returns suddenly. This is the mystery that unsettles archaeologists the most. Civilizations do not seem to learn slowly. They remember. Writing appears suddenly. Astronomy emerges fully formed. Monumental architecture arrives without prototypes. This should not happen. Yet it happens again and again. Because the survivors of a collapse are not blank slates. They retain partial understanding of seasons, of stars, of geometry, of materials, of social coordination. Not enough to preserve civilization, but enough to seed the next one. What we call the dawn of civilization may actually be the dawn of recovery. The forgotten coastlines. Most ancient human settlements are gone. Not buried beneath deserts. Not destroyed by war, but drowned. For over 100,000 years, sea levels were dramatically lower than today. Entire continents existed where oceans now lie. Wide plains, river valleys, natural harbors, perfect places for human life. And when the ice melted, the water did not rise politely. It surged. Coastlines vanished within generations. And with them, ports, trade networks, navigation knowledge, early cities. This is why the archaeological record looks broken. We are searching inland for cultures that lived by the sea. Why the oldest structures are the best. Across the world, a strange rule applies. The oldest stonework is the most precise. Later builders imitate it, but never surpass it. This is backward. Technology should improve, unless technology was lost. Unless later cultures were copying relics of a previous age, trying to recreate something they no longer fully understood. Stone by stone, symbol by symbol, a memory in architecture. The long silence between ages. After each collapse, there is a long silence. Thousands of years where humanity leaves almost no trace. Not because people vanished, but because survival replaced ambition. No monuments, no writing, no cities. Only movement, only adaptation, only waiting. These quiet ages are invisible to history, but they are the foundation of everything that follows. Why myths are not fiction. Myths are not meant to entertain. They are compression. Information reduced to symbols so it can survive collapse. A flood story is not about water. It is about displacement. A sky fire is not magic. It is impact, ash, or eruption. A god who teaches agriculture is not divine. It is a survivor who remembers. When civilizations lack writing, myth is the only archive that endures. The pattern no one likes to see. Here is the pattern, quietly repeating. Climate stabilizes. Human populations expand. Knowledge accumulates. Complex systems emerge. The planet destabilizes. Collapse occurs. Survivors carry fragments forward. 6 times. At least. And now once again, we are in the expansion phase. But this time, something is different. The first civilization that can measure the cycle. For the first time in human history, we can see it happening. We can measure ice loss, sea level rise, magnetic field weakening, atmospheric instability. We can track patterns that ended previous ages. This does not guarantee survival, but it gives us awareness. And awareness is new. The question no one asks: if earlier civilizations collapsed without understanding why, and if we do understand, what responsibility does that give us? Do we preserve knowledge deliberately? Do we build for permanence? Do we design systems meant to survive collapse? Or do we repeat the cycle unconsciously? What will remain after us? If our age ends, what will survive? Not data centers, not satellites, not digital records. Stone survives. Symbols survive. Stories survive. The same things that survived before. Perhaps future humans will find strange alignments, buried structures, encoded warnings, and wonder who we were, just as we wonder about those before us. A final thought for sleep. You are not living at the end of history. You are living inside a cycle, a very old one. The Earth does not hurry, but it does not wait. Civilizations rise when conditions allow. They fall when conditions change. The only question is not if, it is how aware. And tonight, as you rest, remember this. You are not standing at the beginning of the story. You are not standing at the end. You are standing in the middle of a breath. Inhale, exhale, and the earth remembers. Lower your breathing. Let the room become still. Because the earth is not silent. It only speaks slowly. Long before writing, long before memory, the planet learned how to record everything. Not in books, not in monuments, but in matter itself. Tonight, we listen to those records. The ice that never forgets ice is not empty. It is layered memory. Each year, snowfall settles gently. Each year, it compresses the year before it. Dust, ash, air, tiny bubbles sealed away like whispers. Inside those bubbles is ancient atmosphere, a breath of worlds that no longer exist. When scientists drill into polar ice, they are not drilling for climate. They are drilling into time. They find sudden changes, abrupt drops in temperature, rapid spikes in ash, chemical signatures of burning skies. Not gradual change, not evolution, but collapse. The ice remembers moments when the world shifted faster than human stories could follow. Moments when entire civilizations had no time to adapt. The ice does not judge. It only records. Stone as a memory medium. Stone is slow, but it lasts. When humans carve stone, they are unknowingly participating in something older than culture. They are writing in the same language the earth uses. Pressure, angle, alignment. Stone remembers direction. Stone remembers weight. Stone remembers where the sun rose when it was placed. That is why ancient structures align with stars. Not as decoration, but as timestamps. Markers in deep time. A stone circle is not a monument. It is a memory anchor. A way to say, this is when the world looked like this. Why megaliths appear after collapse. After each planetary reset, something strange happens. Stone structures appear early, before cities, before writing, before complex economies. Because stone is chosen instinctively. Survivors note without knowing why that fragile materials will not last. Wood burns, clay dissolves, metal corrodes. Stone survives floods, fire, and time. Megaliths are not expressions of power. They are acts of remembrance. The ocean as a locked archive. The largest archive on Earth is underwater, and we barely touch it. When sea levels rose after the ice melted, the ocean did not erase history. It sealed it. Cities drowned intact. Coastlines froze in place. River valleys were preserved beneath silt. The ocean floor is not empty. It is a library with the lights turned off. Sonar reveals grids, terraces, straight lines, things nature does not make easily. But the deeper you go, the quieter the research becomes. Because the ocean keeps its secrets well. Why Earth prefers silence. Earth does not preserve stories loudly. It buries them. Under ice, underwater, under sediment. Because silence protects memory. Exposure destroys it. That is why the most ancient truths are always hidden. Not because someone placed them there, but because survival requires concealment. The human body as an archive. There is one archive closer than stone, closer than ice, closer than the ocean. Your body, your DNA carries records of migrations, bottlenecks, near extinction events, moments when humanity almost disappeared. These are not stories. They are scars, encoded not in language, but in survival. Your cells remember climates you never lived through. Your genes remember landscapes that no longer exist. You are walking history. Why the archives are fragmented. No single archive tells the whole story. Ice shows collapse. Stone shows knowledge. Myth shows trauma. DNA shows survival. Only together do they form a pattern. And patterns are uncomfortable because they remove the illusion of permanence. The quiet truth beneath everything. Civilization is not a ladder. It is a wave, rising when conditions allow, breaking when conditions change. The archives do not predict. They warn, but only if we learn how to listen. A thought to fall asleep with. You are not small. You are not insignificant. You are part of a long sequence of witnesses. Others lived before you. Others will live after. The earth will continue to write. In ice, in stone, in water. And tonight, as you rest, the archives remain. Waiting. Slow your breathing. There is nothing you need to understand now. Nothing you need to remember. Just listen, because endings are not sharp. They are soft, like sediment settling after a storm. The earth does not rush. It has seen fire before. It has seen ice before. It has seen oceans move where forests once stood. And it remains, not unchanged, but continuous. Civilizations arrive like seasons. They bloom. They complexify. They leave traces. And then they dissolve back into the planet that carried them. This is not failure. It is rhythm. You were taught to think of history as a line, a beginning, a middle, an end. But the earth does not move in lines. It breathes. And each breath carries life forward, then gently releases it. The stones beneath your feet are older than language. They remember footsteps that had no names. The oceans remember coastlines that no longer exist. The ice remembers air that no longer surrounds the planet. Nothing is truly lost. It is only rearranged. You are not standing at the edge of something ending. You are resting inside something continuing. Even now, the people before you did not know the cycle. They experienced it as mystery, as punishment, as the will of gods. They feared it. You are the first to recognize the pattern. And recognition changes everything, not because it gives control, but because it brings calm. When you understand that collapse is not personal, that it is not moral, that it is not punishment, fear loosens its grip. The earth is not angry. It is adjusting, as it always has. You are not required to save the world tonight. You are only required to exist within it. Breathing, listening, resting. The future does not need certainty. It needs memory. And memory survives best when it is simple. Stories, symbols, stone, quiet things. One day, long after this moment, someone else may stand where you once stood. They will not know your name, but they may feel the same stillness, the same sense of belonging to something vast. And that will be enough. For now, let the weight of history lift from you. You do not carry the past alone. The earth carries it for you. There is nothing more you need to do, nothing more you need to understand. The cycle continues, and you are safe inside this moment. Rest. The earth remembers, and tonight, you can sleep.